The desperate call. The emergency beacon pierced through the vast darkness of space, carrying with it the desperation of an entire civilization. The signal reached the Galactic Federation's Central Command on Station Harmony 7 at precisely 1427 Federation Standard Time. Within moments, the peaceful corridors of the massive space station erupted into controlled chaos as hundreds of beings from dozens of species worked frantically to decode the message. Admiral Kethvar of the Altarian Navy stood before the main display screen, his four arms crossed in a gesture of deep concern. The Altarians were known throughout the galaxy for their diplomatic skills and their commitment to peaceful resolution of conflicts. But as the distress signal played for the third time, even Kethvar's legendary composure began to crack. The transmission showed beings unlike any most Federation members had encountered before. They appeared to be made of living crystal, their bodies shimmering with internal light that pulsed with their emotions. When they spoke, their words were accompanied by brilliant flashes of color that somehow conveyed meaning beyond mere language. "Please, anyone who receives this message," the lead Zephyrian pleaded, his crystalline form flickering between blue and deep purple. "We are the Zephyrians of planet Ethros. For 10,000 years, we have lived in peace, studying the mysteries of light and energy. We have never harmed another living being, never raised weapons, never known war. But now death comes for us all." The image shifted to show the planet's surface. Once beautiful crystal cities lay in ruins, their prismatic towers shattered like broken dreams. Dark ships moved across the sky like mechanical vultures, and where they passed, all lights seemed to die. "The Void Hunters have found us," the Zephyrian continued, his light dimming to barely a whisper. "They consume life itself, drain the energy from living beings until nothing remains but empty husks. Our people are dying by the thousands. We have perhaps 72 hours before our entire civilization is extinct. We beg of you, people of the stars, send help. Send anyone. We will share all our knowledge, all our discoveries, but please, do not let us die alone in the darkness." The transmission ended, leaving the Federation Command Center in stunned silence. Council members from across the galaxy began arriving within the hour, their emergency transporters materializing on the station's diplomatic deck. The Federation had faced many crises before, but none quite like this. The Void Hunters were legend, nightmare stories told to frighten children of warrior species. Ancient mechanical beings from the galaxy's dark age, they were said to harvest the life force of entire worlds, leaving behind nothing but dead rock and cold metal. Most civilizations believed them to be myth. Those that knew better had hidden the truth for millennia. "The situation is clear," announced Chancellor Rexney of the Gorthan Republic, her reptilian features grim. "The Void Hunters have returned. This is not a local conflict or a territorial dispute. This is a threat to all organic life in the galaxy." Admiral Kethvar studied the tactical displays surrounding the council chamber. "Our combined fleets number over 3,000 vessels. Surely we can mount an effective response against the Void Hunters." The voice belonged to Elder Zentai of the Mystic Order, one of the few beings old enough to remember the last time the Hunters had awakened. "Your fleets are designed for conflicts between civilized species. The Hunters are not civilized. They are a virus given form, a cancer that spreads through space, consuming everything in its path." The debate raged for hours. Some argued for immediate military action, others for evacuation of the Zephyrians. A few suggested that perhaps the Federation should simply accept that some battles could not be won. Through it all, the countdown continued. 72 hours became 68, then 64. It was during the heated arguments about evacuation logistics that a quiet voice spoke from the back of the chamber. "The Earth delegation requests permission to address the Council." All eyes turned to the small group of beings in the corner. Humans were the newest members of the Galactic Federation, having achieved faster-than-light travel only 18 months ago. Their planet was listed in Federation databases as a Class 9 death world, a designation that had raised eyebrows throughout civilized space. Most Death World species were either too primitive or too aggressive for Federation membership. Humanity had somehow managed to be both advanced enough for space travel and stable enough for diplomacy. Admiral Sarah Chen stepped forward, her simple blue uniform stark against the elaborate robes and formal wear of the other delegates. She was tall by human standards, with graying hair pulled back in a practical bun and eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. Honored council members, Earth wishes to volunteer for the rescue mission. The chamber erupted in surprised murmurs. Chancellor Rexney held up a clawed hand for silence. Admiral Chen, while we appreciate your species' enthusiasm, this is not a situation for newcomers. The Void Hunters are beyond anything your people have encountered. With respect, Chancellor, Chen replied calmly, you're right. We haven't encountered the Void Hunters before, but we've encountered something just as dangerous, ourselves. For thousands of years, my species has fought wars against impossible odds. We've learned to adapt, to survive, to find ways to win when victory seems impossible. Elder Zentai leaned forward, his ancient eyes studying the human admiral intently. What exactly are you proposing? Give us the data on the Void Hunters. Tell us everything you know about their capabilities, their weaknesses, their behavior patterns. Then let us do what humans do best. Find a way to fight back. And what exactly do humans do best? Asked Admiral Kethvar, his tone somewhere between curious and skeptical. Chen smiled, and there was something in that expression that made several council members suddenly uncomfortable. We specialize in the impossible, Admiral. When peaceful negotiation fails, when superior firepower isn't enough, when civilized warfare becomes meaningless, that's when humans thrive. We're very good at finding unconventional solutions to unsolvable problems. The council debated for another hour, but time was running out. The Zephyrian refugees had sent 3 more increasingly desperate messages. The Void Hunter fleet was systematically destroying every population center on Ethros. Soon, there would be no one left to save. Finally, Chancellor Rexney called for a vote. All in favor of authorizing Earth to mount a rescue mission to Ethros. The result was close, but humanity had been given their chance. Within 6 hours, Admiral Chen was aboard the UES Defiance, humanity's most advanced warship. The vessel was smaller than most Federation cruisers, built for speed and flexibility rather than raw firepower. Its crew of 200 represented the best of Earth's military. Marines who had fought in the asteroid wars, pilots who had survived the Jupiter campaign, engineers who could repair battle damage with spare parts and stubbornness. The mission commander was Colonel Marcus Kane, a veteran of more conflicts than most humans cared to remember. Kane had started his military career as a private in the African Liberation Wars and had worked his way up through sheer competence and an uncanny ability to win battles that everyone else considered lost causes. His team of 50 specialists had been handpicked from Earth's various military branches. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Commander Rosa Martinez, the ship's tactical officer, "we're receiving updated intelligence from Federation Command. The Void Hunter fleet has grown to 47 vessels, all of them larger than anything in the Federation database." Kane studied the tactical display showing the Ethros system. The Void Hunter ships moved in perfect formation, their dark hulls seeming to absorb light itself. They surrounded the planet like a metallic shroud, methodically harvesting every trace of life energy. "What do we know about their technology?" Kane asked. Dr. Elizabeth Harper, the mission's xenorchaeologist, pulled up her research files. According to Federation records, the Void Hunters use quantum energy extraction systems. They can drain the life force from organic matter at the molecular level. Their hulls are composed of some kind of adaptive material that becomes stronger when attacked with conventional weapons. "Conventional weapons," Kane mused. "Good thing we don't plan on being conventional." The journey to Ethros took 3 days at maximum warp. During that time, Kane's team prepared for what everyone agreed was likely a suicide mission. They studied every scrap of information about the Void Hunters, analyzed the crystalline biology of the Zephyrians, and planned dozens of different scenarios for the rescue operation. The Federation approach would be to engage the Hunter fleet directly, Kane explained to his senior staff. Massive formations, heavy firepower, traditional space combat. It didn't work 10,000 years ago, and it won't work now. The Hunters are designed to fight that kind of war. So what's our approach, sir? Asked Captain Lisa Park, commander of the Marine Detachment. Kane smiled, the same expression that had made Admiral Chen's council colleagues nervous. We're going to do something the Hunters won't expect. We're going to fight dirty. When the Defiance dropped out of warp at the edge of the Ethros system, the crew got their first look at the enemy. The Void Hunter ships were enormous, each one the size of a small moon, their surfaces covered in weapon emplacements and energy collection arrays. They moved with mechanical precision, their formation covering every possible escape route from the planet. Jesus, whispered Martinez. How are we supposed to fight that? Kane activated the ship's communication system. This is Colonel Marcus Kane of the Earth vessel Defiance to any surviving Zephyrians on Ethros. We are here to help. Please respond on any frequency. For several long minutes, there was only static. Then, faintly, a familiar pattern of light began to pulse across the communication array. The ship's translation computer worked frantically to decode the Zephyrian light speech. Thank the infinite spectrum, came the translated voice, weak but unmistakably relieved. We are Lumina Christia of the Ethros Academy. 7,000 of us remain, hidden in the deep crystal caves beneath the polar city of Prism Telephone, but the Hunters grow stronger with each passing hour. Soon they will find us. Kane leaned forward in his command chair. Lumina Christia, this is Colonel Kane. We're going to get you out of there, but I need you to do exactly what I tell you. Can you contact other survivor groups? Yes, Colonel Kane. There are perhaps 20,000 Zephyrians still alive, scattered across the planet in various shelters. Good. I want you to coordinate with them. In exactly 6 hours, I need every survivor to generate as much light as possible. Sing your light songs. Activate your city illumination systems. Do whatever creates the biggest energy signature you can manage. There was confusion in the Zephyrians' response. But Colonel Kane, that will reveal our locations to the Hunters. They will come for us immediately. I'm counting on it, Kane replied grimly. Trust me, Lumina Christia. Sometimes the best way to hide is to make yourself visible. As the Defiance began its approach to the planet, Kane's plan started to unfold. It was insane, desperate, and relied on about a dozen variables going exactly right. In other words, it was perfectly human. Part 2. The Human Solution. 6 hours later, the planet Aethros erupted in brilliant light. From every hidden shelter, every secret sanctuary, every underground refuge, the surviving Zephyrians channeled their life energy into a magnificent display of luminous defiance. The crystal cities that had been dark for days suddenly blazed with rainbow fire. Ancient light spires awakened from their slumber, sending columns of pure energy spiraling into the sky. The effect was exactly what Colonel Kane had hoped for. The Void Hunter fleet, which had been methodically searching the planet's surface, immediately converged on the light sources. Their massive ships descended like mechanical storm clouds, energy extraction beams reaching down to harvest the sudden bounty of life force. Phase 1 complete, Kane announced to his crew. All Hunter vessels are now focused on the surface. Martinez, take us in. The UES Defiance dropped toward the planet at maximum burn, its hull glowing cherry red from atmospheric friction. To the Void Hunters, it was just another piece of space debris, too small to be worth their attention. Their sensors were calibrated for the massive energy signatures of Federation battleships, not the compact efficiency of human engineering. Landing zone is 5 kilometers from the main Hunter extraction site, reported the navigation officer. Heavy enemy presence, sir. Perfect, Kane replied. Park, get your Marines ready. Harper, I need you to establish contact with the Zephyrians the moment we touch down. Everyone else, remember the mission parameters. We're not here to win a war. We're here to save lives. The Defiance touched down in what had once been a beautiful crystal garden. Now the prismatic trees lay shattered, their rainbow light faded to dull gray. In the distance, the massive form of a Void Hunter harvester loomed against the sky, its extraction beams drawing life energy from the desperate Zephyrians below. Kane's Marines deployed with practiced efficiency. Unlike the elaborate formations favored by most galactic militaries, they moved in small, flexible units, using the broken terrain for cover. Their weapons were simple kinetic firearms, chemically propelled projectiles that no sophisticated alien defense system would consider worth stopping. Contact established with local Zephyrians, Dr. Harper reported. Lumina Christia is in the evacuation zone. She says they have about 3,000 civilians ready to move, but the hunters are closing in fast. Kane studied the tactical display on his wrist computer. The Void Hunters moved like a well-oiled machine, their ground forces advancing in perfect synchronization. They were efficient, relentless, and completely predictable. That was going to be their downfall. Jackson, how long until the fireworks start? Kane asked his demolitions expert. Sergeant Dave Jackson grinned as he armed the last of his improvised explosive devices. 30 seconds, sir. The hunters won't know what hit them. The explosions began right on schedule, but they weren't aimed at the Void Hunters themselves. That would have been pointless against their adaptive armor. Instead, Jackson had targeted the planet's geological weak points, areas where the crystal formations created natural resonance chambers. The first blast triggered a cascade reaction through the underground crystal networks. What had been a stable geological formation suddenly became a massive harmonic amplifier. The Zephyrians' light songs, channeled through the planet's crystal matrix, created a feedback loop that overloaded the hunters' energy collection systems. What the hell? One of the Marines shouted as the nearest Void Hunter ship suddenly lurched sideways, its extraction beam flickering and failing. Harmonic disruption, Dr. Harper explained, her voice filled with scientific excitement. The Hunter's technology is designed to extract specific energy frequencies. But when you flood the system with harmonic interference, their sensors go blind and their weapons malfunction, Kane finished. Elementary acoustics, adapted for crystalline environments. Sometimes the old tricks are the best tricks. The Void Hunter response was swift and predictable. Unable to trust their malfunctioning sensors, they switched to visual scanning and brute force tactics. Their ground forces began advancing toward the known Zephyrian positions, intent on physically capturing their prey. That was exactly what Kane had been waiting for. All units, execute Trojan Horse Protocol, he commanded. Across the battlefield, Kane's Marines began what appeared to be a desperate retreat. They fell back from their positions, firing wildly and calling for evacuation. To the Void Hunters, it looked like the human force was collapsing under pressure. The Hunters pressed their advantage, their mechanical infantry advancing in tight formation toward what they believed was a beaten enemy. They were so focused on the apparent victory that they never noticed the small devices being left behind in the abandoned human positions. Proximity mines armed and ready, Jackson reported, just like the old days in the Martian tunnels. The Void Hunter advance hit the first minefield at exactly the moment Kane had calculated. The explosions weren't large enough to seriously damage the mechanical soldiers, but they weren't supposed to. Instead, they released clouds of metallic chaff, millions of tiny particles that clung to the Hunter's optical sensors and communication arrays. Suddenly, the perfectly coordinated Void Hunter assault became a chaotic mess of blind machines bumping into each other and firing at shadows. Their adaptive armor, designed to counter energy weapons and high explosives, was useless against simple sand and metal dust. Phase 2 complete, Kane announced. All evacuation teams, begin extraction. While the Void Hunters struggled with their compromised systems, Kane's Marines were executing the real mission. Small teams moved swiftly through the crystal caves, guiding groups of Zephyrian refugees toward the landing zone. The aliens were weak from days of hiding and terror, but they trusted the strange creatures who had come from the stars to save them. Colonel Kane, Lumina Christia's light speech pulsed with gratitude as she was helped aboard the Defiance. Your tactics are unlike anything in our histories. How did you know the harmonic frequencies would disrupt their systems? Kane helped the elderly Zephyrian settle into one of the ship's medical bays. We didn't know it would work, ma'am. But humans have a saying, when you can't fight fair, fight smart. The hunters are designed to counter conventional tactics, so we used unconventional ones. The evacuation continued for 6 more hours. Kane's teams moved like ghosts through the ruined landscape, always one step ahead of the confused Void Hunter forces. They used every trick in the human playbook: decoy signals, false retreats, improvised weapons, and good old-fashioned cunning. By the time the Void Hunters realized what was happening, over 15,000 Zephyrians were safely aboard human vessels. The rest of the survivor groups had been given detailed instructions for conducting their own evacuations using the same harmonic disruption techniques. Sir, Martinez reported from the bridge. We're getting multiple contacts on long-range sensors. Looks like the main Void Hunter fleet is returning from orbit. Kane nodded grimly. The hardest part was still ahead. Getting the refugees off-planet would require running a gauntlet of the largest Void Hunter ships ever recorded. All civilian transports. This is Kane. Form up on the Defiance and prepare for combat acceleration. We're going home. The escape from Aethros became the stuff of legend. Kane's small fleet, overloaded with refugees and running on fumes, somehow managed to outrun and outfight a force 50 times their size. They used every asteroid, every gas cloud, every piece of space debris as cover. When the hunters tried to cut them off, the humans simply changed course and found another route. How were they doing this? Demanded Void Hunter Fleet Commander Nihilus, his mechanical voice echoing through the bridge of his flagship. These creatures should have been destroyed hours ago. His tactical officer's response was tinged with electronic confusion. Unknown, Commander. Their vessels are too small for our targeting systems to lock onto effectively. When we do achieve lock, they perform maneuvers that should destroy their ships, but somehow they survive. What the Void Hunters didn't understand was that human ships were built differently than other vessels in the galaxy. While most species design their vessels for comfort and efficiency, humans built theirs to survive. Every system had backup systems. Every backup had alternatives. Human crews trained constantly for catastrophic failures, because on a death world, catastrophic failure was just another Tuesday. The final confrontation came at the edge of the system, where Kane's fleet met the approaching Federation relief force. Admiral Kethvar's massive dreadnoughts arrived just as the last Void Hunter pursuers were closing in. "This is Admiral Kethvar to Colonel Kane," came the transmission. "We are prepared to engage the Hunter fleet. Fall back and let us handle this." "Negative, Admiral," Kane replied. "We've got this under control." Before Kethvar could respond, Kane's ships executed one final maneuver that left the Federation observers speechless. Instead of running from the Void Hunters, the human vessels suddenly reversed course and charged directly at their pursuers. At the last possible second, they scattered in all directions, passing between the massive hunter ships like minnows swimming between whales. As they passed, each human vessel released its remaining supply of harmonic disruptors, devices reverse-engineered from Zephyrian technology during the evacuation. The effect was immediate and devastating. The Void Hunter fleet, their systems overwhelmed by harmonic interference, began to tear itself apart as their own weapon systems turned on each other. "Impossible," whispered Elder Zentai as he watched the tactical display. "The Void Hunters haven't been defeated in combat for 10,000 years. They weren't defeated in combat today either," Kane replied over the comm. "They were defeated by acoustics, geology, and a little creative thinking. Sometimes the best weapon isn't the biggest gun. It's the right idea at the right time." The aftermath of the Aethros rescue changed everything. The Zephyrians, grateful beyond words, shared their advanced light manipulation technologies with Earth. The Federation Council, initially skeptical of human methods, began to see the value of unconventional thinking. Other species started requesting human military advisors for their own defense forces. But perhaps the most significant change was in how the galaxy viewed humanity itself. No longer were they seen as primitive newcomers from a dangerous world. They were recognized as something new and valuable, a species that could find hope in hopeless situations, victory in impossible circumstances, and solutions where none seemed to exist. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of Harmony 7, watching as the rescued Zephyrians began their new lives in Federation refugee centers. Their crystalline forms still pulsed with the trauma of their ordeal, but there was something else there too: hope. "Your species continues to surprise us," Chancellor Rexney said, joining Chen at the viewing port. "The Council has been discussing your methods. Some find them disturbing." Chen smiled. "I can understand that. Humans approach problems differently than most species. We're not naturally peaceful like the Zephyrians, or naturally diplomatic like the Altarians. We're naturally stubborn. When someone tells us something is impossible, our first instinct is to prove them wrong. And if you had failed, if your unconventional methods had resulted in the death of every Zephyrian on Aetheris, then we would have failed," Chen replied simply. "But at least we would have tried. That's what humans do, Chancellor. We try, even when trying seems pointless, especially when it seems pointless, because sometimes, just sometimes, the impossible turns out to be merely improbable." As the two leaders watched, a group of young Zephyrians began to sing their light songs, their crystalline bodies glowing with renewed joy. The melody was one of their traditional pieces, but there was something new woven into it. A rhythm that spoke of courage in darkness, of hope against despair, of small lights standing against vast shadows. It was, Chen realized, a very human kind of song. In the weeks that followed, requests for human assistance began pouring in from across the galaxy. Species that had never heard of Earth suddenly wanted to know more about the small planet and its stubborn inhabitants. The Federation Council established a new department dedicated to unconventional problem resolution, with Admiral Chen as its first director. Colonel Kane returned to Earth as a hero, but he spent little time enjoying his fame. There were already reports of new threats emerging in distant sectors, new impossible situations that required impossible solutions. Kane began training a new generation of human soldiers, teaching them not just how to fight, but how to think, how to see problems from angles that no one else had considered. The Zephyrians, for their part, became humanity's closest allies in the galaxy. Their mastery of light-based technology combined with human ingenuity created innovations that no one could have imagined. Together, they began to explore the mysteries of the universe with a curiosity that was purely human and a wisdom that was purely Zephyrian. And somewhere in the deep spaces between the stars, other ancient evils that had slumbered for millennia began to stir, drawn by whispers of a new player in the galactic game. A species that didn't follow the rules, didn't accept limitations, and somehow managed to turn desperate situations into victories. They would learn, as the Void Hunters had learned, that when faced with the impossible, humans didn't give up. They got creative. The end.